Karate is back, and it's taking over with part 1 of season 6 of Cobra Kai. Now, I have always been a huge fan of the original movies, but I have been raring to go when it comes to binge watching my way through this show. Has Netflix's season 6 part 1 of Cobra Kai put the show on the trajectory for success? The setup of the storyline for season 6 part 1 is showing us life after the defeat of Cobra Kai, but they're not really gone, and that's what all of our characters seem to believe. We see Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang coming together, trying to unify under a new cause for their alliance, which actually transpires into being the Sekai Taikai tournament. With the three senseis now adding complexity among the dojo, things heat up between Daniel LaRusso, Johny Lawrence, and Chozen. Not only are the senseis working through their relationship dynamics, but the students, once enemies, now need to find a way to form relationships by leaving the past where it belongs. If things couldn't be complex and fragile already, Kreese continues to get back up and throw a spanner in the works to be the key disruptor to the harmony. Season 6 continues to add to the overall show in a staircased approach, with more fight scenes, a bigger and badder competition, more unpredictable villains, familiar faces from the past, and a plot twist to our beloved Mr. Miyagi. We're getting episodes 1 to 5 that are roughly between 35 to 45 minutes in length for part 1, which will have another 5 episodes follow in part 2, and a final 5 episodes follow in part 3. Now, before the new season release of Cobra Kai, I have to say I was a little bit worried, because I didn't want this show to take the same course that Game of Thrones did, with a subpar season finale ending, after they'd put so much work into making sure that this show had a certain level of quality. And it just got me thinking, how could the show, now introducing its season finale of season 6, and yes, I know part 1, but how could they outdo themselves? So have Netflix added something new and fresh? For the most part of the first part for season 6, things are shaping up pretty much the same. However, we are seeing things starting to dial up a notch, with certain events starting to set the stage for the remainder of the season. Netflix have stepped up their game, with them increasing the number of fight scenes that are taking place. And I believe there was actually a fight scene in almost every episode, which definitely adds to the suspense. We are also getting a new dynamic when it comes to the character relationships, when you've got enemies, now friends, and once enemies, and starting to explore those new relationships. They're definitely also going out with a big bang, because they've introduced a fresh new tournament in the Sekai Taikai, which is set on the world stage and being held in Barcelona. And if that wasn't enough, we're getting a new shocking plot twist that will redefine what we know about Mr. Miyagi. Now, I know this can definitely feel like more of the same, but for sure I think Netflix had definitely added a fair amount into this in order to keep a fresh and new vibe going. I think we are seeing something that's similar to previous seasons. Yes, there is a fight competition that the story arc is developing around. There is training, school, romance, rifts in friendships, but they are showing intent by pushing the boundaries when it comes to the story and the characters that we know and love in order to go out with a bang in this final season. Now, for me, there seems to be a bit of a plot hole when it comes to John Kreese. How have we gone from him being put behind bars in the previous season, and then being shown him walking the streets and roaming free? In season 5, we see John Kreese and his partner in crime, Terry Silver, being arrested. They finally get found out, and we're led to believe that they're going to go away for a very long time, which ultimately will bring peace finally to the valley. And even in the beginning of this part 1 of season 6, they're both plastered all over the news, which is explaining all to do with the next steps for those two characters in terms of their sentencing. But soon after, John Kreese ends up walking the streets as a free man. For me, this is fairly significant, because it felt like the balloon had burst in that moment from season 5, with a here we go again sort of moment, instead of something fresh and new, with maybe new masterminds behind the turn of events that are going to take place. Now, in all fairness, I know it's only part 1, so we might get brought into the fold as to how he did end up getting let go. But as things stand, we've seen him get arrested, we've seen his face plastered all over the news, our heroes are led to believe that they've brought peace to the valley and that he's going away for a very, very long time. And then all of a sudden he's free, embarking on a mission to rebuild Cobra Kai and get his revenge on Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang. Now there are a few lingering questions for me, but I know we've got part 2 to enjoy and we've also got a part 3 to welcome, so I'm feeling positive about the show, providing us the clarity we need in order to fulfill the gaps that might have been left. But like I said, there's only a few, I think. 2 questions. How did John Kreese all of a sudden get his freedom? And what is the truth behind Mr. Miyagi's past? Now the stars of the show are, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher these names, Ralph Macchio as Daniel LaRusso, William Zabka as Johny Lawrence, Zolo Mariduena as Miguel Diaz, Tanner Buchanan as Robbie Keane, Martin Cohn as John Kreese, Peyton List as Tori, Mary Mouser as Samantha LaRusso, Jacob Bertrand as Eli, Gianni DeCenzo as Dimitri, and Dallas Dupree Young as Kenny. Now, who are the ones to watch in part 1 of season 6? As always, we need our choices for the ones to watch. And the ones to watch for me are Daniel LaRusso, Johny Lawrence, Miguel Diaz, Robbie Keane, John Kreese, and Tori Nicholas. Now, who is the one to watch out of the ones to watch? Now for me, I found this to be really difficult. But I am going to be hard on myself and keep it to just one. And with that being said, the chosen one to watch is going to be Tori. Now this is because there is a lot for us as the audience to go through with this character. From her trying to battle through the norm in her character portrayal in previous seasons gone by, to her loss, to her change of allegiance yet again, and it's shaping up to be a bit of a roller coaster with this character already, which I have to say has been a very exciting watch. Now I have to say we do get to witness a lot of interesting character development in this season so far, which makes things feel like there's a fresh and new element that's been added to the show. I would even go as far to say that each one of our characters all carry a potential plot twist with them. And when it comes to Daniel LaRusso, how far will his relationship with Mr. Miyagi be tested? From the Karate Kid movies all the way through to the Cobra Kai series, Daniel LaRusso has always shown the utmost loyalty when it comes to Mr. Miyagi. And Mr. Miyagi has almost filled that void in Daniel's life when it comes to a father figure. Daniel has always shown a fierce sense of support and devotion to Mr. Miyagi. But in part 1 of season 6, we're uncovering something that we've never seen before. Daniel actually uncovers something in his dojo that once belonged to Mr. Miyagi, and it was hidden under the floorboards. This box that was discovered almost acts like a bit of a time capsule of Mr. Miyagi. And when he opens that box, it's almost like he's flooded with a ton of questions that test the fabrics of which Daniel and Mr. Miyagi's relationship was built on. Because we have to remember that in Daniel's eyes, Mr. Miyagi is that all peaceful, living by a code of defense in his karate teachings, but his image and pedestal of Mr. Miyagi is about to be tested like it's never been tested before. This discovery is so huge that it plays a massive significance in altering not just Daniel's perception of Mr. Miyagi, but us as the audience of how we view him as well, because this could be the catalyst for change that actually drove Mr. Miyagi to make a huge change to his life. So it's not that he's always been that type of way. We're now realizing that potentially there is a given reason that set the course of events for Mr. Miyagi deciding to change and live his life that way. My prediction here is that I think this plot twist could also be met with another plot twist, as we will inevitably find out the truth behind this. Now, Johny Lawrence. Are we going to see this positive change stick for good? From seeing Johnny embark on the mission to rebuild Cobra Kai and establish himself as the leader of the dojo, it's felt like a bit of a roller coaster with this character arc. So far in this season, we're seeing his character take a form that we've never really seen before. He's actually embracing Miyagi-Do as a way of life. We do witness a bit of a turbulent start with this character, but then the arc begins to blossom, seeing him finally start to find balance within his life. And it's really great to see, because Johnny now has a family, and we're seeing him buy his new house. We're seeing him establish himself in partnership and unity in the dojo with Chozen and Daniel and becoming that sensei, which ultimately brings him and Daniel together. And this is probably the closest that they've ever been. He manages to become a sales rep in Daniel's car dealership, and he's actually implementing those teachings that were passed down by Mr. Miyagi to Daniel, and now Daniel to Johnny. Now, not completely, but he's definitely made huge leaps and bounds towards adopting that way of life, and it is being portrayed in the show. Now, this is huge growth for the character. Now, we do see Johnny state to Daniel that he is going to call it quits with the partnership around the dojo, but we also see him turn down an offer that was quite surprising and a positive one in terms of being offered sensei of Cobra Kai, which could have seen him really take and establish that Cobra Kai dojo once again. Because we have to remember, we aren't really seeing it in its strongest light, because it is a bunch of young kids being trained by one of the students, so it's not really Cobra Kai, but he could have easily turned round, accepted that offer and rebuild again, because he's done it before. And this actually gives me a fair bit of excitement to see where the character might go next and finally conclude. Will he turn back to being a villain? Will he re-establish a standalone Eagle Fang? Will he call it quits with karate entirely? It's really exciting to see what the story might conclude for Johnny. Now, with Miguel Diaz, it's also quite interesting in terms of the character development here, because he is showing us that he's balanced, but he's also still showing us that he's got that Cobra Kai within him as he shows his self-interest come to the surface. As balanced as his portrayal might seem, in this season so far, we're seeing all of our young heroes and students ready to take the next stage in life as they're preparing to go to college. Now, Miguel needs to be front and center for the Sekai Taikai tournament, making sure that he's team captain in order to get a scholarship into a good college, as we're seeing money issues start to occur. Now, with the high quantity in numbers for Daniel and Johnny's dojo, they need to set some internal tests up to see, one, who is going to be the selected team, and two, who is going to take the two captaincies in male and female representation. The captaincy is trickled down into the last two, which is a standoff between Robbie and Miguel, with the winner taking the male captaincy. In that standoff, we see the Cobra Kai anger start to surface from Miguel, but Robbie walking away with the win. This sequence of events plays a key role in how the story will develop, because we now know that Miguel still has the snake within him, as he decides to put his own self-interest above anything else, which could carry a bit of a plot twist in the second and third parts to the overall season. Not to say that it's definitely going to happen, but you never know. Now, with Robbie, we're also seeing a little bit of a similar scenario. Again, Robbie's balanced. He's showing that. But the thing that surfaces with Robbie is his self-doubt, which in turn breeds a lack of confidence in himself. Now, in that same standoff between Robbie and Miguel, we're starting to see Robbie's confidence wobbling, not wanting to come second again and actually prove that he's a winner. The difference here is that we're not seeing Robbie compromise his Miyagi-Do teachings, but we are seeing something that could definitely affect him in a different way, which is linked to his upbringing, having a psychological impact. Now, I have to say, for me, this could play a huge impact on Robbie's ability to be able to fully focus and commit to the Sekai Taikai tournament. And not only that, the change of allegiance with his girlfriend Tori rejoining Cobra Kai could add to that dysfunctional focus that he needs to have in order to win. Could we see a potential plot twist here where he decides to follow Tori and rejoin Cobra Kai in order to get out of Miguel's shadow, in order to fuel his thinking in wanting to be the best? Now, John Kreese. Will this man ever give up? Ever since the days of the Karate Kid movies, John Kreese has always been a complex character that never seems to stay down. Since his arrest in Season 5, we may have thought we'd seen the end of the Cobra Kai dojo, and it finally being brought to an end. Well, how wrong was that statement? John Kreese, as things stand now, has been able to walk away from any consequences that he may have faced from season 5. That we know of right now. And with his newfound freedom, he has gone all the way back to the origin of Cobra Kai and the teachings from whence they originated from, in order to rebuild the fallen dojo. Not only is he going to rebuild the Cobra Kai dojo, we are witnessing him rebuild this dojo stronger than we've ever seen it before. Now this might be arguably more of the same, but actually this could play a massive significance to the overall storyline for the rest of the season, because how it was left in the final episode of part 1, our characters are met face to face with the Cobra Kai dojo walking onto the scene, and this could cause significant disruption in the focus of our heroes as they are about to take center stage with the Sekai Taikai competition. And the thoughts that might be running through their head is, does Cobra Kai ever stay down? Do they ever give up? And what is it going to take to defeat the Cobra Kai dojo? Now I do think we will find out the truth behind John Kreese's release in either part 2 or part 3, legally or illegally, as I really wouldn't expect the script to leave any unsettlement given the fact that this is the final season. But I do think it's safe to say that this man does not stay defeated for very long, which actually will make things even more interesting and entertaining as we see how things finally conclude. Tori Nicholas has been good, then evil, then good, and now evil again. Where on earth will the arc of this character end up? In this first part of season 6, we see Tori's character arc start to take more of a positive one, where she's actually buying into the Miyagi-Do teachings. It actually sees her establish herself as one of the main figures within the dojo, which is really great to see. Balance is actually starting to work its way into Tori's life, seeing her take more of a stable situation in her relationship with Robbie as boyfriend and girlfriend, making peace with Samantha LaRusso, and taking the lead in her family. But all of a sudden tragedy starts to take effect, specifically with Tori's mother, having a negative effect on Tori, and in all fairness, like it would with anyone. And John Kreese, being the snake he is, goes to meet with her after this tragedy occurs, offering her an olive branch to rejoin Cobra Kai, with the intention of her representing Cobra Kai in the Sekai Taikai competition. This offer couldn't have been made at a worse time, as this sets the events in motion with Tori actually changing allegiances and rejoining Cobra Kai. I think Tori knows that the decision she's made is the wrong one, but I think it's come at the worst possible time, as she's acting out of emotion, which is completely realistic and completely understandable, given what has happened and what she's had to go through. However, when it does come to Tori, she does have it within her to cross the line, and you know that she has the ability to cross the line so far that she's willing to stop at nothing in order to get what she wants. The thing is, you just can't say for certain how this is going to conclude. This has a major impact on the story, because not only do our heroes now have to cope and deal with the fact that Cobra Kai are back in the equation after thinking that they were put down for good, but they now have to come to some sort of realization that they've also lost Tori, and they have to face off against her. Now, I wouldn't say we were spoilt for choice when it came to the visuals, but there was one that had a subtle symbolic moment for me. Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang now united as one. We start off with a bit of a disagreement between the senseis in what the name and the emblem should be in representation of their dojo. On one hand, Daniel wants to preserve the teachings and longevity of Mr. Miyagi. And on the other hand, Johnny is pretty understandably proud of what he's been able to create and establish, as well as wanting a more up-to-date version and a much more cooler version in representing his dojo. After much disagreement, Johnny finally comes around to accepting Daniel wanting to have things his way. But what was a nice touch was Daniel also accepted Johnny wanting to have his way, which has resulted in the dojos combining both emblems together to become one. I definitely don't think there's a lot to call out, and this one piece that I'm calling out isn't exactly a game changer, but it's what it represents that I thought was actually good, which is a sense of unity, combining the dojos as one, as well as combining Daniel and Johnny together finally. Now, when it comes to the cinematography, this wouldn't be Cobra Kai without a ton of fight scenes, and my god have we had an uptake in fight scenes. Given that this is going to be the season finale of Cobra Kai, you can definitely tell that they want to go out with a bang. There are multiple fight scenes in every episode in part 1, which was really exciting to see. The suspense, insane. Coupled with the camera movements, made it really entertaining to watch. For me, this has really kicked off the season with a fast start. Not having an episode dedicated to being a filler episode, and really pushing to make this final season the best one yet. Now, does season 6 part 1 set things up well for the season finale of Cobra Kai? Now, even though we've only had part 1 of 3 parts for this season 6, there is a lot to digest. We have new character relationships being formed, fight scenes galore, characters breaking their norms when it comes to their usual behaviours, and villains that are bigger and badder than we've ever seen them before. I do think that Netflix have done well with part 1 of Cobra Kai so far. I have to say that I was worried before watching this, because they could have potentially run the risk of this just not being as good, but they've really pushed in making this as entertaining as possible, and not holding anything back until they get to the final part of the series. I will say that I was quite surprised in how much they were actually able to cover in only just one part. Given the fact that we're going to have 3 parts made up of 15 episodes, the surprise has come from the quality that they've invested into this, which is all centered around the script, and that transmits to us as the audience, making sure that we're not getting any filler episodes. It just feels like something's happening in every episode, which makes things so much more entertaining. Overall, I found season 6 part 1 to be entertaining. I think they've set the show up well, exploring character relationships who were once enemies, now friends, also providing plot twists early on, and even though it could feel like more of the same, they have actually upped their game, making the Cobra Kai series unpredictable. I think it feels like they've added a fresh and new element to what is already existing when it comes to the characters, by enabling them to explore new portrayals in their character execution in order to establish a unity when it comes to the Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang dojo's unity. When it comes to the visual and cinematography, I think they've added a symbolic touch in combining Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang's dojo gis, as well as upping the fighting scenes in almost every episode, whilst also upping their game when it comes to the camera work. Now, season 6 part 1 of Cobra Kai did definitely hold my attention, and I definitely think that they've upped their game, but in setting a high bar, they've set themselves a hard task in making sure that they maintain a level of consistency in parts 2 and parts 3. Will they pull it off? I give season 6 part 1 of Cobra Kai 3.5 out of 5 buckets, meaning it's a binge watching 50-50 / blockbuster. If you've been watching the show, who's your favourite character? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, don't forget to smash a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and follow us on social media to stay up to date with the latest content. If you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more. I'm Matthew, this is Binge Watcher, thanks for binging with me.